You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker. What do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way. Close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Claude from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It is a second consecutive day sans JMV. Do not worry, he is back tomorrow. Why is he back tomorrow? He's on location tomorrow, and that's good money. So John has taken a couple of days off. He is back on Wednesday. He is off on Thursday. He is back on Friday, and he would never miss a JMB takeover. And again, I think I may be able to set a record with my phone call to John that I have planned on Saturday night. Another professional radio tease that is 4 days in the making. My name is Greg Rakestraw. Hello, how are you? Hope you're having a great Tuesday afternoon. You and I will do this together between now and 6 o'clock. You know the drill, 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. Tweet to me at Greg Rakestraw. Email the program to greg@1070thefan.com. Now, you heard the promo going into this hour of the program. We do not have any Indiana Fever-related guests on the show today, but that's the topic that I want to discuss, and it is somewhat twofold. Obviously, the amount that we talk about the Indiana Fever on this radio station, well, I would say it is multiplied exponentially over the course of the last couple of seasons. But when the factor was zero, as it kind of was for many years, when the Fever were no longer on the radio station, that kind of happened about 7 or 8 years ago, and they were continuing to kind of walk through the wilderness for the better part of many years. So I'm not sure if you multiply something from zero is still going to be the answer, but you get my point. But we have reached an interesting kind of juxtaposition, so to speak. That's my fancy SAT vocabulary word. I'm not sure that John would drop a juxtaposition on you. There is one of the things that tends to be different when he and I are hosting the show. But literally, it smacks you in the face as you drive anywhere downtown, courtesy of the billboard we talked about yesterday with Caitlin Clark. But that's for the All-Star weekend. But seemingly every other side of a building in town is being decorated as well. And let's make sure we point out to somebody that need a little help in having things explained to you that that's not the Indiana Fever or Indiana Pacers doing that, or the great folks with the city of Indianapolis, or the or the Indiana Sports Commission, Indiana Sports Corp. Sorry about that. I'm like tripping on this for some reason. This is all corporate sponsorship dollars, and that's not meant to be derogatory or negative. That's actually very complimentary in this situation. But there's Gatorade signs and Panini signs and other groups that I have forgot what the sponsorship logo was on the way in. But literally, I come in from Broad Ripple, and which means that my entry point to get downtown is to, come down Capitol Avenue, because my favorite Starbucks is there. Free promotion for those of you that are watching. They're my afternoon dose, one of two for the day. So I'm nice and, all chipper in speaking with you between now and 6 o'clock. But literally, as I'm driving downtown, there's Billboard left, then there's Blue Monster right with Caitlin Clark, then there is the typical kind of that bridge that goes to the convention center, which would be where Maryland and Capitol intersect. Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark are on that. If I had kept going, there is side of the building signage that is on, I believe, Pan Am Plaza at this point. I turn left, and as part of what was or whatever Circle Center Mall is going to be, there's Gatorade signage that is going up there. I saw another lift, which means they're putting more signage up someplace else. You get the idea. If if I said, hey, it's All-Star Game week in most places, be thinking about the All-Star Game that takes place tonight. And I assume you can hear that, by the way. Actually, no, I know you can't because of the Fever game. So in most places, the All-Star Game, you would say, well, it's the MLB All-Star Game, right? Not necessarily in Indianapolis. So I go to the Twitter to actually conduct a poll to do very much a talk show type of thing to start the show. So you can go to the Twitters and you can vote on this. I simply put, and the poll will stay up for the remainder of the show, which of these options is your likely TV/streaming viewing for the evening? MLB All-Star Game, Fever Game, neither of the two. Because if you're going to watch sports, that's kind of the direction you have to head. You know, last night it was MLB Home Run Derby, which I will get to in a matter of moments, or it was MLB Home Run Derby. Like, I think the other baseball option, and frankly, I found myself drifting towards that, like Bull Durham was on Sundance last night, which cheapens it a little bit, but I've seen the movie so much over the last 37 years, I think I tend to get the idea. So I did bounce back and forth between Home Run Derby and Susan Sarandon, 1988 version of Susan Sarandon, throughout the course of the evening. Right now, and again, let's make sure we point out, okay, Indianapolis might be one of a handful of markets at most where if I said, hey, it's All-Star Week, you might think WNBA first before you think Major League Baseball. But in a place where the Fever were acknowledged that they were here, but weren't exactly talked about and certainly weren't exactly a hot ticket item, the fact that the poll goes as follows in terms of a regular season Fever game. What gets your attention the most? And I've got three answers, and 50% and far and away the clubhouse leader as to what are you watching is the Fever game and not the MLB All-Star Game. Again, I realize Fever play here. We have several MLB teams close to here, but not officially in this market. So is it a completely fair comparison? Of course it's not. But still just something to kind of register and keep in mind. Catches your attention. And one of the things that, you know, you've heard me say this when I filled in for Jake on Friday or filled in for John yesterday or other of our talk show hosts across the board, we talk about that dead time or lack thereof. Well, you know what is one of the ways to kind of ensure that there's not exactly a dead time in terms of Indianapolis sports? Well, if we're all locked in on the Fever and we're kind of treating the Fever like we do the Colts, like we do the Pacers, to where they are truly a sports talk radio conversation, a water cooler topic, guess what just happened? Okay? That dead time that we talk about, using the air quotes, again, those of you on the stream saw that. Those of you listening, I want to make sure I kind of pointed that out. That dead time goes away. Now, are the Colts going to be a bigger topic starting next week and maybe even on today's show? Yeah, probably. And there's a couple of Colts-related things that aren't particular to this iteration of the Indianapolis Colts, but one that I didn't get to yesterday and a new kind of story that I saw posted earlier today on ESPN.com. Time should allow in the last 90 minutes of the show for me to get to those things. But again, we are in a sweet spot or a lack thereof where what is the sporting team or sporting event that maybe has the majority of your attention right now as an Indianapolis sports fan? It's probably the Indiana Fever. And it didn't hurt that Caitlin Clark is healthy, and they put up like 201 points in their last two games, and both of those were 17-point wins or more. And by the way, Fever play each of the next two nights. You can hear those games right here, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Tonight, the Connecticut Sun, that game is played in Boston, and then tomorrow night against the New York Liberty, and then it is a brief break from regular season competition because the team returns to play the following Tuesday. And, of course, as mentioned, the WNBA All-Star Game is here and that comes up on Saturday night downtown. You also heard me say this, too. You can go to the poll and vote. Vote early, vote often. Treat it like you would Chicago politics. In terms of guests on the show today, we have front-loaded the program from a guest standpoint. Not through any sort of like show strategy. It's just the way that it worked out. Coming up in the next segment of the show, a guy that, well, he is one of the voices of NASCAR. It has been for some time. As it pertains to this radio station, he's Jake Query's high school classmate at North Central. That would be Adam Alexander. In fact, Adam will join us in the very next segment of the program. Again, the Cup Series is at Dover this weekend, and then they are here for, if you combine the road course era, this would be the 32nd iteration of Brickyard weekend. Whether it's the Brickyard 400, whether it was the road course race, whatever the case may be, I think it was August 6th of 1994, and this being on July 27th of 2005. 32nd year, we have welcomed NASCAR and the Cup Series to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll talk about that and a variety of things with Adam coming up in the very next segment of the show. The other thing that was unfolding and took place while we were on the air yesterday was day 2 of the MLB draft. And we almost kind of treat the MLB draft, we'll never give it the amount of attention we do the NBA draft or the NFL draft, but we talk about it almost kind of like we would a Colts or Pacers draft. For example, 2 weeks ago, we didn't spend much time talking about the NBA draft. Why? The Indiana Pacers never pick until pick number 38. They had 2 picks in the second round, both of whom are playing for their Summer League team, and we will get to that, or at least one moment authored by that Summer League team coming up in just a couple of minutes. But in the MLB draft, what we kind of do is go, all right, where are guys from Indiana being taken? We're only a couple of years removed from Max Clark being one of the first names off the board for a team that suddenly is really good and has one of the night starters in the All-Star game, that being the Detroit Tigers. Well, there were no guys from Indiana that were first-round picks, but there were a couple of guys from Indiana University, one of them from Southern Indiana, from Jeffersonville, that was a second-round pick. Then there was a slew of players. I think 3 different high school pitchers were taken, and several guys that had ties to Indiana State. And I'll maybe talk more about that a little later on the program. But there's a couple of players that I had connections to that didn't exactly come from the usual backgrounds to get a shot at playing professional baseball. And both of those 2 players, or those 2 players, at least I can reference, both will join during the 4 o'clock hour. In fact, we'll only stack them back-to-back, 4 and 4:15. First of those 2 is a young man named Gable Pentecost. He did not play high school baseball, at least at an IHSAA school, until he was a junior. He attended Fremont High School, which basically is the last town you come to in the state of Indiana. If you're on your way towards Michigan I-69, Fremont's the last stop. Next place you'd visit would be across the state line. It is a single-A school. He ended up getting 1 scholarship baseball opportunity at Taylor University, which is an NAIA program. As NAIA programs go, it's a very good one. I think they were rated number 9 in the country at the end of the regular season. Gable struck out 116 batters in 80 innings with 12-2 and was the Crossroads League Pitcher of the Year. He was a 6th-round pick yesterday in the MLB draft. He's going to join us coming up at 4 o'clock. I did not have a chance to call one of his games this year. I did see Marion play a couple of times, but did not see him pitch. One guy that the last time I saw him play, he hit a ball that I'm not sure has landed yet. His name is Jack Marachnik. He plays at Butler University. He is a Brebeuf Jesuit graduate, and yesterday he was an 11th-round pick of the Washington Nationals, and he will join us during the 4 o'clock hour of the show as well. So 3 guests for you, 1 in the 3 o'clock hour, 2 in the 4 o'clock hour. The rest of the show will be you, me, James chiming in, Again, you can vote in the Twitter poll. You can say what you want to talk about or what questions, comments, concerns you might have via social media at Greg Rakestraw for me. But from the 4:30 segment of the show on, it's going to be you and me for the last 90 minutes of the show. So, again, get those fingertips ready to dial the phone, and we'll have a nice conversation on the program. Now, let's get to the activities of last night. You know, when I said, listen, your options from a sports viewing standpoint last night were basically the home run derby and the home run derby, I guess I should have mentioned you could have been watching the NBA Summer League last night. And you could be doing that today or tomorrow or Thursday. The Indiana Pacers, I believe, play again at 4:30 on Thursday. I think that is the case. And their game is on ESPN2. And the team they are playing has up and left me. Like it matters, it's the Summer League. But everybody is familiar with one play that happened last night. And especially in a competition where overall results don't matter, it is the ultimate of it was the social media clip that got your attention. And my guess is, you know what I'm talking about by now, and that would be Johnny Furphy, who was the victory cigar for the Indiana Pacers this past season. And apparently is like double jointed in his shoulder and or his elbow because the angle he took to soul snatch the poor 18-year-old kid that he dunked on from the Chicago Bulls, causing his future grandchildren to cry years down the road. Oh, good Lord, what a dunk that was. And, of course, the dunk in and of itself was jaw-dropping. But what truly spread like wildfire was the picture of the poor dude reacting. There's something you can't control. It's something that it just happened to you. The kid is trying to track the ball and figure out what just happened. But the still shot of Furphy dunking, and I believe the young man's name is pronounced Noah Essengay. He is and if I get that wrong, je suis désolé. I am sorry to the young man from France who is now I'm sure because James listens to French death metal, he understands, you know, what I just said. I think I said it right. I think that means I am very sorry. I took enough French to be dangerous in high school. But that poor kid, again, I talk about his grandchildren crying. He looked like he was crying. That's not just some chump. You're the 12th pick in the NBA draft. You're probably actually going to stick around in the league at least for a few years. So you'll see that kid around in future Bulls and Pacers games because he's playing for the Bulls and they're rebuilding. Again, he may have more of a chance to get more run than Furphy does for the Indiana Pacers. But that was the moment of what social media does to sports consumption. Because, oh, by the way, the Pacers lost the game. And again, it's the Summer League. It does not matter. But that dunk, my goodness. The reaction, no. So I'm sure you've seen the photo by now. If not, look it up. And again, you feel bad for that poor kid. Not really, because you're a Pacers fan, but you at least have some compassion because as of now, that is what that young man is known for in terms of his NBA career. 317-239-1070. Speaking of things that do not matter for Monday Night Sports, that would be the home run derby. Now, just because I have been around to see so many of them, it takes a lot to not just wow me, but interest me. Because of a lack of other options, I ended up probably watching a bit more of that than I thought I would. And again, I have admitted on previous and past shows these last couple of days, I don't watch anywhere near the amount of Major League Baseball as I probably should or clearly as I used to. And again, growing up, that was like, if the Reds were on 41 back home, shut it down. It's what we're doing. I'm watching the Reds game. That was the true team of my youth. And the last time the Reds won a World Series, I was a freshman in high school. And like most of us that are sports fans, It is easier to recite rosters and stats from your teams when you were 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. There is some sort of correlation to, hey, she looks pretty, and all that information just up and leaves you. But before that, I can tell you Danny Jackson winning 23 games in 1988. I can give you the 1999 roster/batting order for the Reds. They platooned Hal Morris, Todd Benzinger at first base, et cetera, et cetera. I don't watch the way that I used to, and that even applies to the home run derby. Like when I think of the home run derby, I think of the peak of the McGuire-Sosa era. I think of the home run derby at Fenway Park. Ted Williams is on the field. They're sending balls towards the Sitco sign. Like, that's what I think of. We referenced Bare Naked Ladies. My guess is I may have another pair of tickets to give away at some point in time. This is not your cue to call, by the way, but I will reference a hook from one of their songs. It's all been done before. You kind of have that feeling about the home run derby. So I thought it was cool. All-star uniforms have been known to be rather outlandish, garish. Again, that's a fancy way of saying ugly. I thought those uniforms last night were cool. Thought the atmosphere in Atlanta was pretty sweet. I thought that having all the guys wear 3 and 44 to be able to kind of honor Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth, who did play for the Braves franchise back when it was in Boston. 7-14 was last night's date. That was Babe Ruth's record. 7-15, and then today's date became Hank Aaron's record. It's kind of long and winding to get to that point, but I got it. I'm like, okay, fine. All right, you're making an effort here. Home run derby wasn't bad last night. There's too many rules and regulations. It's a pretty simple concept. Did you hit the friggin' ball out of the park or not? Did you? Yes, there's a point. Did you not? Okay, that's enough. Everything else, you're overcomplicating things that don't need to be happening. But to me, what intrigues me is this story of Cal Raleigh. You get a cool nickname, man, and everybody's talking about you. So later in the show, we'll talk more about the big dumper. There is a phrase I'm pretty sure I have never uttered before in my nearly 30 years of having a radio career. Big dumper talk in 3, 2, 1. We'll do that later in the show. We'll talk roundy around with Adam Alexander. He of TNT and other outlets for talking all things NASCAR, and he of the North Central High School class of 1991. He'll join us next. Greg Rakestraw filling in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
the Bet365 Command Center. Get your race updates here all month long and make sure to enter for your chance to win $500 by predicting the winner of this year's race on July 27th. Go to 1075thefan.com to enter. Now, here's your 2025 race update brought to you by Bet365.
You know, yesterday when we did this, I said a bunch of stuff and kind of recapped the race on Sunday and said, here's what's going to be up next week. But you know what? I think our next guest is going to do a pretty good job of explaining everything that I could say in 30 seconds. So let's spend some more time with him, shall we?
The Ride with JMV.
1, is this or is this not the XFL? Yes, it is. 2, do I or do I not currently have a pulse? Yes, I do. Let's play football.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
That, of course, is the now University of Louisville head football coach Jeff Brom and his XFL days. Greg Rakestraw in for JMV. He is back tomorrow. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And yes, you heard the Bet365 Command Center. They are kind of presenting sponsor, one of them, of our Brickyard weekend coverage, which really ramps up next week, but we start talking about it now, and a good guy to do that and a variety of things would be Adam Alexander. And first of all, buddy, it's good to talk to you. How are you?
Doing great. It's so awesome to be on with you, Greg, and you and I talk and communicate from time to time, but it's good to do it on the air, and always appreciate everything you bring, and appreciate you having me on.
I am Adam's conduit to all things Indiana high school sports down in the Charlotte area, so hence that's a lot of our conversation. When I need to talk NASCAR, he's always there for me, and we greatly appreciate that. My memory would tell me you have been a part of radio network coverage at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Is next Sunday the first race that you're going to be in the primary announcer's chair to announce at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
For sure. No doubt about that. I have done some turn work for the 500, the Brickyard 400. I was on pit road for a few Indy 500s on the radio network. And then I did the NASCAR Hot Pass stuff when that was going on, like 07, 08. So I was around a little bit when all that was going on with DirecTV. But, yeah, this is the first time I've been able to sit in the pagoda on race day and call a NASCAR event or call an event of any kind at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's really exciting.
Listen, knowing you're more comfortable talking about 40 different race cars than talking about yourself. But I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself for a moment. You grow up wanting to do this as a kid, maybe not knowing that racing was going to be the avenue, but you wanted to be a sportscaster. As we talked about, obviously Jake was on before me. The three of us are all friends. You two guys grew up together. Next Sunday, you literally get to I'm getting goosebumps asking this question. You get to achieve a life's dream. An Indianapolis kid is going to call a major race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Your thoughts on the completion of that sentence?
I've got to be honest, I've tried to not think about it that way because I feel like when you do that, it just adds pressure, but I'll enjoy the moment. And I talked to someone else about this, and I said, I think I'd be kidding myself if I didn't feel like there'd be more butterflies on race morning next weekend than there has been throughout our run. And, I would say the best comparison I have is I've been now in the Charlotte area for close to 15 years and been doing NASCAR stuff for almost 25. Actually, it has been 25 years now of NASCAR broadcasting. And when I was doing the Amazon Prime stuff, their first race was the Coke 600. So it's, and that's a crown jewel.
Yep.
And that was probably the closest comparison I have to that feeling you get to be a part of a major event and be in that position where, you're a facilitator on race day for a TV network. So, yeah, it's going to be something special to be back in Indy. It's always great to go home regardless of why you're there, but to be there in this capacity will be really cool for me. And I look forward to it and look forward to sharing that moment with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Letarte. They've been tremendous teammates, and we've had such a good time together, and that'll be our last broadcast on TNT. So there will be a lot of emotions for many reasons next weekend.
All right, as I look at the schedule, I see Shane Van Gisbergen's been winning a bunch lately because obviously it's been road course or street course action. But I'm also seeing this thing called Challenge Round and Championship Round. Explain to somebody like me that kind of parachutes in for this month. Talk about these things. What exactly is Challenge Round and Championship Round? Please explain.
Well, this is the first year of a new media rights deal in NASCAR, and Fox and NBC were back, and then Amazon Prime came in and said, we want to be a part of this, and TNT, Turner Sports came in and said, we'd like a few races in the summer as well. And so that's how it's divided up. Amazon got 5, Turner got 5. And in TNT, the Turner folks said, you know what, we want to do something to make our 5 weeks unique and special. And so they kind of playing off of some of the NBA coverage they've done, said, what if we do like an in-season tournament and we put a bracket together? And so that's what happened. And we took the 5 weeks that were on Turner, and actually it all began the 3 weeks prior to determine who's in. But they took the top 32 drivers. They seeded it 132, 231, and so on. They built a bracket, and each week, in addition to the race and all the things that go on within a NASCAR event, you had the bracket, and you had these head-to-head matchups, and it was real simple. You finish in front of your guy, you move on to next week. And there have been some upsets, and actually there were a lot of upsets week 1 because the first race in this deal was at Atlanta Motor Speedway, now Echo Park Speedway, and it's in the draft, and we had a big crash and took out some great drivers. And so the Cinderella story right now is Ty Dillon, a kid that won an Xfinity race a number of years ago at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's Richard Childress' grandson, the iconic owner who's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He beat Denny Hamlin. He beat Brad Keselowski. He got Alex Bowman on the last lap at Sonoma, and he's down now to the Final 4. So we'll get it down to 2, pare it down to 2 this weekend at Dover, and there will be 2 drivers going head-to-head for $1 million next weekend at Indianapolis.
You just explained the motivation with that last phrase in terms of the purse that is along with it. From a playoff standpoint, in that era, which we are now approaching maybe 20 years of a playoff, if not a little bit more of that in NASCAR, this has tended to be one of the last races heading into it, or kind of an important key stretch. Has the playoff format changed at all for 2025, Adam?
Playoff format is the same, but I would say that the positioning of it has been upset a little bit, and it's because of someone that you mentioned, Shane Van Gisbergen. You know, he came and started racing in NASCAR 2 years ago, won in his first ever start on the streets of Chicago, and it was like, wow, this, supercar racer from New Zealand has really got it. Everyone knew his strengths would be street course racing, road course racing. He was a rookie last year in Xfinity. He made the playoffs because he won races on road courses and put himself in. They put him in a cup car this year running for Rookie of the Year. He's taken advantage. He didn't win at Circuit of the Americas, the opening race on the road in Austin, Texas, but he's won the 3 races since. Mexico City on the streets of Chicago, and most recently Sunday at Sonoma. So when you have a driver like that doesn't have a lot of oval experience and quite honestly is a little bit like a duck out of water, but is almost unbeatable on the road courses, that kind of takes a playoff spot. And so he's upset the apple cart a little bit with what he's been able to accomplish. So that is changed the thought process a little bit. But the one thing that hasn't changed, and you said it, when you get down to late July, early August, you're heading down the stretch of the regular season, there's a lot of pressure. And right now we've had 12 winners, so 12 of 16 spots are taken, only 4 remain. There will be 5 races left in the regular season when we get to Indianapolis next week. So it's very intense at that cut line to determine who would get in on points, and some drivers in a must-win are willing to do anything, and including throwing those Hail Marys on strategy. So I feel like in many ways we're going to be in for a real when we get to Indy next weekend.
Adam Alexander, he will have the call next Sunday on TNT for the Brickyard 400. Joining us here, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. My name is Greg Rakestraw, in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. In the early days of this race, and early days, I'm saying first 10, 15 years, we were spoiled. Jeff Gordon kept winning. Tony Stewart then joined the party. South Bend's Ryan Newman, you get the comparison. You know where I'm leading you here. Chase Briscoe. Seemingly things are going well. He's 8th in the points in his first year driving for Joe Gibbs. What has his season been like for the Mitchell, Indiana native?
It's gotten better and better in recent weeks, and I would say his momentum is ramping at just the right time to do what all those guys that you just mentioned have done, and that is get a hometown win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I say hometown, Mitchell, Indiana,
close
not
enough.
Too far down the road, but this is his place, right? If he could pick a spot to do it, this would be it. It's his first year at Joe Gibbs Racing, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with driving for that organization. But there's also some irony. As a kid that grew up in Indiana, Tony Stewart was his guy, and he grew up playing the NASCAR video games in the Tony Stewart Home Depot uniform. I mean, he knows what it's about. And so this is a little bit of a full circle moment for him. And for him, 20 years after Tony got it done, to be able to win, at Indy and to do all that would be amazing. And I would say this too. There aren't a lot of tracks like Indianapolis on the schedule. But if there is one that is comparable, if you were to put another in the same category, you would quickly identify Pocono as that place. And who won at Pocono last month? Chase Briscoe. So not only does he have some momentum going right now, they were second over the weekend, and he was the only driver that could stay within the same zip code of Shane Van Gisbergen at Sonoma. They just really have hit the sweet spot at this style of racetrack. So I can't wait. I'm happy for him. I'm excited for him. And he wants to win more races, so he's got those playoff points once we get to the postseason to help him as he tries to run down a championship. So it's a great time to be Chase Briscoe, no doubt.
Final thing before we let you go, and again, I want to be appreciative of the effort that he made, but to me, the storyline for Kyle Larson in the month of May here was that he frankly wasn't a story. He never kind of really threatened to be in the Fast 6, Fast 12, to be potentially a race winner, and obviously, crashed out and was able to get to Charlotte in plenty of time. How was his month of May in Indy viewed by those in the NASCAR garages, Adam?
I feel like everyone celebrates Kyle because he's so good,
Yep.
and everyone roots for him when he comes to Indy to run the 500 because it's kind of, what you do in NASCAR circles. You want to see him do well, and that's been the case with all those drivers that have attempted the double. Unfortunately for Kyle, he did Memorial Day weekend, and there was all the hype and everything that went into that. And since that time, they really, have struggled. He actually qualified well for the Coke 600 and led a bunch of laps early. He had not led laps since then until over the weekend at Sonoma, and he did it through a cycle of green flag pit stops. So they are looking to get back on track. Dover this weekend is a great place for him, and we know he won last year at Indianapolis. So maybe this will be a turning point for him. But in regard to Indianapolis, everyone celebrates what he did, even though expectations were high and you want to see the best, and he didn't get everything out of that everyone would have hoped. The support was there, and now we'll see if they can get back on track on the NASCAR side, because if they do, we know his talent level and what he's capable of come the fall and trying to win his second NASCAR championship.
I feel like this conversation has been one-sided. So before I let you go, any high school questions I can answer for you before I let you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday?
You sound like my wife. This conversation has been one-sided, I'll tell you this. I'm excited about the fall and college football and everything that comes with that in Indiana and, of course, high school as well. So I'll be following along.
Tell Coach Adams I said hello, and you and I will see each other next weekend. Be good, buddy.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Adam Alexander joining us. And again, you start thinking about this, and I was going to host these couple of shows. And even though we're kind of a week and a half out for the race, I'm like, all right, I'm calling the bat phone. Wanted to make sure we get him on the program. You may hear that again, if not later in the show today. You will probably hear it as part of our build-up pre-race, et cetera, next Saturday or Sunday. Myself and Kurt Darling will have those shows next Saturday and Sunday here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We are past due for a break, and we've got guests at 4 o'clock. So a short segment comes your way next. We'll try to make it worth your while on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
A ride with JMV.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All the good stuff of the show you've come to love, and love, except, well, the person you actually listen to. John is on, I wouldn't even say vacation. Like, if you take 2 days off, that's not a vacation, right? Like, he worked on Saturday night, he took Sunday off. 3 days. For John, that's like a vacation. John is back tomorrow because he is on site. I'll look it up at some place downtown that he will be at tomorrow on the program. He's off on Thursday, back on Friday. Everybody's trying to kind of sneak away as best they can, knowing training camp starts next Wednesday. Players move in on Tuesday. Wednesday is when practice officially gets underway. And obviously, tons of our shows will be on site and on location. Heck, I'm doing a Saturday matinee show on August the 9th from training camp at Grand Park. So stop by and see all of your favorite fan hosts when you go out to training camp coming up in a couple of weeks. I want to go back to the Twitter poll. Again, which of these options is your likely TV streaming viewing for the evening? Is it the MLB All-Star Game? Is it the Fever Game? Is it neither of the two? That poll will stay up for the remainder of the show. Right now, the Fever Game, 46%. Neither of the two, 28%. The MLB All-Star Game, 26%. So keep those votes a-rolling in. I will do something else from a Twitter interactive standpoint, probably starting in the next segment of the show. Next segment, not one guest, but two, but both guys who heard their names called yesterday in the MLB draft. Gable Pentecost of Taylor University was a 6th-round pick. Jack Marachnik of Brebeuf and Butler was an 11th-round pick, and both those guys will join the show in the next segment. You got something you want to say? Good time to do it is right now. 317-239-1070. 317-239-1070. James, my call screener is not working, so if someone is on hold, let's just do this old style. Tell me a name. Who's online?
Right now we have no one.
We have no one. I thought somebody was on hold.
They were, and then they hung up, it looks like.
Oh, okay. So now I get to talk about the big dumper for a couple of minutes instead, because I promised I would talk about that earlier in the show, and that is the current star of the moment, and that would be Cal Raleigh of the Seattle Mariners. Like, the Mariners, I think, just got good again in the last year or two. Like, they hadn't made the playoffs since dating back to 2001. And I happened to hear him on with Dan Patrick, about 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. I go, oh, okay. I'm sure I have heard of him at some point in time, but the season that he is having is jaw-droppingly good. He's played 94 games. We're at the All-Star break. He's got 38 home runs. This is after having 27, 30, 34 the last 3 years, and now 38. He leads the league in home runs. He obviously won the home run derby last night. He has 82 runs batted in. That leads the league in runs batted in. Those old, antiquated stats, the one you actually paid attention to back in 1982. In kind of modern slugger stats, he's batting .259. That is a career best batting average so far. But all those home runs were hit with averages of .211, .232, .220. But a couple things that caught my attention is the fact that dude has been remarkably durable. Again, he's played in 94 games so far this year. I don't have the exact number of games that the Seattle Mariners have played. I'll be able to look it up here momentarily. The answer is 96. So he's appeared in 94 games. And at any position, but especially as a catcher, that should get your attention. In previous years, he has played in 145, 153 games. This part I looked up. Almost all of those as a catcher. Occasionally, he'll sneak an appearance as a pinch hitter. Occasionally, he'll sneak an appearance as a DH. Because anytime that you have a catcher that hits this well, the immediate thought is, we have to switch in positions. because the wear and tear of being a catcher is just going to bring him down. That's why it was important to point out last night, he's the first catcher to win the home run derby. It doesn't happen. You got guys that are good offensive players, but usually you end up moving positions because your bat is too valuable. Here's the thing, though. Dude was the Gold Glove winner last year for American League catchers. In other words, we may have an honest-to-goodness generated star in baseball. 28 years of age, played at Florida State. And again, you play in Pacific Northwest, unless you're Ken Griffey Jr. or Ichiro or even Big Unit, sometimes you can get lost in the shuffle. Well, guy had a national stage last night and took advantage of it. And obviously, a cool nickname doesn't hurt either. I'm not sure what the nicknames are for our next two guests who literally began their professional careers yesterday, at least from being drafted. One pitcher, one slugger. They'll both join us next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Wouldn't It Be Nice is the name of the song that James is playing. I think Nick Kershaw, I believe, would be the artist. See, I can channel some JMV. I can fill it on that show, too, if we needed to. Wouldn't it be nice if you heard your name called in the MLB draft? Well, our guest this segment of the show heard that happen yesterday, and kind of from places that we don't say that on a very regular basis. Like our first guest was the star pitcher at Taylor University, a great small college baseball program, finished the regular season rated number 9 in the NAIA, ended their season in the regional round back in May. They have the Crossroads League Pitcher of the Year, and that is Gable Pentecost. But as of yesterday, he is 6th-round draft pick, Gable Pentecost, the Fremont, Indiana native, joins us now on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Gable, my name is Greg. A pleasure to talk with you. Congratulations. That doesn't often happen for kids from Taylor University. What was yesterday like for you?
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me on. Yesterday was pretty much a blur of emotions. It was pretty fast-paced, but it also felt like it took forever for the pick to get in. It was a really good experience for me and my family. I had a lot of good people in the room with me, and it was a very good experience and a day I'll remember for the rest of my life for sure. Well,
my guess would be you started seeing scouts showing up at games at some point in time during the course of the season. And again, just to complete the circle, I mentioned 6th-round pick. It was the Houston Astros that drafted Gable a day ago. What sort of intel did you have going into the weekend? Any kind of inclination going in where you thought your name might be called?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I have been in communication with teams for a while now. I think the first one this year was probably back in February after we had traveled down to Miami to play St. Thomas University. Mm-hmm. I had a pretty good outing there. I touched 95 a couple times, and that had flagged in the system for some of the organizations, and they reached out. And I started communicating with them through phone calls throughout the season. But they do their job well, and so they didn't really bother me too much during the season. But after the season, it was probably about 2 or 3, maybe 4 calls a week, and just kind of gauging where I'm at and what they expect from me and like what they see in me. And it was really good communication. And leading up to the draft this past week, again, was like a blur. There's a few things that I can remember, but I had a couple Zoom calls, one with the Houston Astros on Friday. It was with the national cross-checker, the scout that had come and watched most of my games, and they kind of just put it out on paper, like, this is what we see in you. We're hoping to pick you. They didn't really give me a range, but they definitely put their interest out there. And I had 4 or 5 other teams do the same, but they were definitely front runners.
All right, so when you think you're going to be a pick, and again, it used to be like I can think of Mike Piazza being a 62nd round pick. It doesn't work that way anymore. There are 20 rounds. Yeah. I think the first 3 rounds are Sunday night, and then everything else takes place in terms of Monday. What sort of party were you and the family throwing yesterday with the idea, hey, I'm going to hear my name at some point in time? What was it like?
Yeah, it's good you said that because we actually did not know for sure. Being a small school NAIA guy, you never know if your name's going to be called. We weren't even sure that it was going to be called yesterday until we got the call from the Astros. So we kept it pretty quiet on our end. We didn't really have a draft party, if you will. We kind of just sat in our living room and at our kitchen table and just fielded calls every once in a while. And then the pick came in, and then afterwards we went out with my family for dinner and celebrated with them afterwards.
I would assume there's pretty much even in the 6th round kind of a slotting process, so you kind of know what contractually is there much negotiating room, or are you kind of leaving that all to agents, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a good question because I do not have an agent. Most players will go in with an agent. It just makes the process a little bit easier. But from what I've heard from I've actually been in contact with other players from Taylor that have been drafted. They said, honestly, if you're good with conversations and you can hold a conversation and you know what you want, you don't really need an agent to say that for you. So I went through this process with me, my wife, and my 2 coaches, and we pretty much did all the communication ourselves. And yeah, they do have a slot system with all the rounds, and we pretty much told every team, like, since I don't have an advisor, I'm just going to make it easy on you. Like, I will sign your slot pretty much down to about the 8th round. And if you want to offer me something else, like, you can go ahead and give me a call and we can negotiate. And that's honestly what the draft is. It's pretty much just a huge negotiation all day long.
I like where your head's at. Hey, I want to come pitch for you. Let's make this happen. I like, again, what the general thought process is. So I guess now what's next? Knowing you're going to sign for what that slot is, you know, it's a matter of when and not if. What is now the likely path for you in terms of where you would report to first and when you would actually pitch for the first time as a member of the Houston Astros organization?
Yes. So the first step is going down to Houston, and we will do our physicals, sign the contract there, and then I will be taken to Florida to the spring training facility, and we'll do our medical checkups, come up with the nutrition plan, workout plan. I'll probably be there for a month or 2, and then I would be back in the Taylor University area actually for most of the off season. And then I will report to spring training sometime next spring, and I will be assigned to a team then.
Okay, so in other words, part of that, just because, again, you threw, I think, 80 innings during the course of the college season, is it more or less, all right, the team feels you've thrown enough competitive innings for 1 year, you kind of get a fresh start in 2026? Is that kind of part of the decision-making process?
Yes, that is part of the decision-making process. They are also a very load-oriented organization. They do a very, very good job of making sure their pitchers don't throw too many innings in a year. What they're doing this year is they're actually having none of their pitchers, none of their draftee pitchers throw any innings until next spring. So they do a really good job of monitoring that. They keep the player focus first.
All right, so let's kind of back things up a little bit. And I mentioned this when we kind of teased the interview earlier. From Fremont, again, small town, single A school. You played homeschool baseball for at least a couple of years, you know, while you were growing up. Tell us about how you ended up going from Fremont to Taylor University.
Yeah, it's a good story. At least I do. I'm a little biased, yeah, so I was homeschooled up until high school, technically homeschooled all the way through high school. My parents decided, like, we're a Christian family and we want to spend more time in our children's lives than other people that we don't know. And I really appreciate that about my parents. They did a really good job of raising us, me and my 4 siblings. So yeah, I did have a relationship though with Fremont High School. They have a homeschool policy. A lot of schools do in Indiana where you can take a class or 2 classes there and be eligible to play sports. And so I did that through high school. I also took classes at the local university there, Trine, that's in Angola. And yeah, so it was a pretty unconventional high school experience, but I think it prepared me a lot for college because I was used to what the college classroom looked like, and had all the sports playing that I could have wanted. It was a really good experience for me. And then as for my recruiting process, I was actually not recruited for baseball out of high school. I was actually planning on playing basketball at a small D3 college in Fort Wayne. And it was not until one of my last high school baseball games that Coach Gould, my head coach at Taylor University, came and saw one of my games and really liked what he saw. I actually was not that good of a player. I was just athletic and I could move down the mound, never had any pitching coaching. And so he was like, I think you'll fit in well here at Taylor. I think there's a lot of room for you to grow. And so, yeah, I said yes. And just everything got better from there over the course of 3 years.
I'm going to say, I'm looking at your stats. And frankly, in college baseball, having a 4.8 ERA is pretty good. But your last 2 years, you go a combined 20-3, and your combined ERA is about 2.9. That's what gets you drafted as a 6th-round pick, even when you play at a good level, but at a non-Division I level. So I guess what kind of clicked for you, Gable, going from freshman year to sophomore year, and then obviously to this past year, your junior year?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think one thing that we really push at Taylor, and something that my parents have instilled in me in a long time for my whole life, is just doing everything with excellence. If I'm gonna do my school, if I'm gonna work, if I'm gonna play sports, like I'm not ever gonna go at it without a whole heart. Like I'm gonna try to do everything with excellence and be excellent at everything that I do. And so obviously being in the atmosphere of Taylor and being within that community, everybody's chasing after the same things. And so it was very, honestly, like I can tell you about my growth process, but honestly, it would not have happened without the community around me, the
Sure.
coaches, my wife, my parents. Like I do not think that I would be where I'm at without all of that. And so I think pretty much from my freshman year, I just made small little jumps here every single week. And over the course of 2.5 years, it kind of just grew to the point where I was getting professional attention, and it was starting to become a lot more real coming into my junior year.
Obviously, it paid off. And again, Gable's last year stats, 12-2, ERA right at 3, 116 Ks and 80 innings pitched. Again, those are numbers that get you noticed, and you did a great job in the last answer of kind of bragging on the entire Taylor University community and the town of Upland surrounding it. I'm going to have you brag on the baseball program. Again, I spend a lot of time with Marion and know all of the Crossroads League institutions well. What you guys have done at Taylor to being such a great every year baseball program, what is it about specifically Taylor baseball that got you to this point?
Yes. So kind of what I said earlier, we instill a mindset sort of that we are going to do everything with excellence. And when you're around people that have that same mindset, the sky's the limit. Really anybody that you get around that has that kind of mindset it propels you forward. And another thing is, like, we just take the pressure off of ourselves. Everything that we do is for the glory of God, and we are very, very passionate about that. So when we think about it, doing it that way, and God's got us, and we're just going to do everything for His glory, it really takes the pressure off of us. Like, we can strike out and still be loved and still be the people that we are. And so when we go about it with that mindset of being excellent in our practice, in our reps, in our games, and everything that we do, and with the goal in mind of glorifying God, that there's really no pressure at that point. So I think being around that community for 3 years, for the past 3 years of my life, I think that's really what's propelled me and most of my other teammates, because I play with some pretty high level guys, so it's been a really fun ride.
Last time I checked the standings, this was maybe the last week of April. I go, yeah, Taylor's 7 games clear of the pack in the league. That's pretty rarefied air. A couple quick things and we'll let you go. Being a good Taylor University student, how many visits did you have to Ivanhoe's during your days as a Taylor Trojan?
That's a really I'm glad you mentioned that. So funny thing that Taylor baseball does is we play 4-game series. And
Yep.
So when we travel away to away games and we sweep the series, which means we win 4 out of the 4 games, our coaches buy us ice cream afterwards, and that is normally at Ivanhoe. So I have benefited greatly from the success of the team. The last couple of years, we've been to Ivanhoe several times as a team, a couple times on dates with my wife, and just random times where we need a little pickup from a failed exam or something like that. So, but yeah, it's definitely a good place in Upland, one of the only places, unfortunately, but that's kind of what makes Taylor great.
There you go. Before we let you go, final thing, and again, I realize you got a lot of work to get there, to kind of get from point A to point B, but you get drafted yesterday. The MLB Home Run Derby is last night, which obviously is not exactly a pitching clinic, but do you let your mind wander as you're watching that and go, I could be thrown to one of these guys in the not too distant future? Have those synapses started to fire in your brain just yet?
A little bit. I definitely try to live my life one day at a time. And like you said, the major leagues are definitely down the road a little bit. There are a lot of things that I can work on with my game, which excites me to no end. I've definitely not mastered anything in my game, and there's a lot of cracks that need to be filled. And so I'm excited to take the next year, maybe the next 2 years, and really try to fill those cracks. And so I'm ready for the big leagues once I finally get there. And yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting journey. I'm excited to go about this, and yeah, I'll definitely definitely excited to see where it's going to be in the next couple of years.
It is certainly a special opportunity, regardless where one is from, let alone from Fremont, Indiana, and Taylor University. Gable, we'll be cheering for you, buddy. Really appreciate the time and the conversation. Good luck going forward.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
You got it. Gable Pentecost from Taylor University, 6th-round pick of the Houston Astros. So there's a guy that's trying to strike people out. Here is a guy that is trying to join the home run derby at some point in time. I called a couple of his games this past year, and again, like I said earlier, I think it was the St. John's game. He hit a ball that I assuming is still orbiting Rocky Ripple in that game that I called back in mid-May. It is Jack Marachnik from Brebeuf and from Butler, and now of the Washington Nationals organization as an 11th-round pick. Jack, how you doing today?
I'm great, Greg. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, I know Akeem Gillespie did a great article kind of on your story heading into the draft that you're kind of debating, all right, do I go with the team that signs me? Do I think about maybe transferring someplace else? Now that you've been selected by the Nationals, have you made up your mind yet as to exactly what your future is going to hold?
Yeah, yes, I have. So going into the draft, it's hard having these two decisions with, how prestigious of a program Texas is and how Coach Schlossner was running the program. It's hard to turn down an opportunity, obviously, to go there, but also hit with their hitting coach in Troy Tulowitzki, who's a 5-time All-Star. But it's always been a lifelong dream of mine to play professional baseball, and that's exactly what I'm going to do with signing with the Washington Nationals.
Well, congratulations on that. And so now that that's going to go forward, kind of what's the next step? Where do you go? Where do you report? When might you be swinging a bat for the pro for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've had a couple talks with a couple people in the organization. Should be getting a little bit more information tonight on everything, but it's looking like this weekend I'll be headed down to West Palm Beach, where their spring training facility is, and, kind of just getting evaluated with physicals and getting acclimated with kind of the pro lifestyle. And we'll go from there. I'll either stay there and play some instructional league games, or I'll go out to their single A affiliate, which is the Fredericksburg Nationals in Virginia.
Very, very cool. All right. Every young man that picks up a bat or throws a baseball dreams about playing in the big leagues or being a professional ball player. At what point in time this year or last year did it start to say, you know what? I think this is legitimate. I think I'm going to get a chance. When did you feel that, hey, your dream might just become a reality?
Yeah. It was probably in the fall, right here in senior year. We had a scout day against Ball State. We do it every fall because of Blake Beaver being from Ball State originally. We have that connection with Rich Maloney, which is one of the most prestigious coaches in college baseball. And I played pretty well that day. There was some scouts in attendance, and I remember 2 or 3 weeks after that, I got a call from Chad Langley, who's a Midwest scout for the Mets. And I was like, I never really expected to ever get calls from scouts or anything like that. So just having that first text, I'm like, okay, maybe this could be real. And, going into, the season I was blessed enough to be able to perform for my team like I did. But, it was just nice being on those calls with a lot of these teams, and I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am.
Here is Jack's last season in Butler, by the way, folks. 81 hits, batted .372, 57 runs batted in, 57 runs scored, slugging percentage north of 700, and had 18 home runs, including 3 in one game at Lindenwood. I would say that was a pretty good spring, and I know you were, especially from a power standpoint, you were tearing the cover off the ball early. What was so key to you getting off to a good start?
Yeah. That was probably the craziest couple of weeks of my baseball career to this point. You hear a lot of hitters talking about how the ball's a beach ball. It's very true. Keys to that is just, staying relaxed, not trying to do too much for your team, being probably the veteran of the team this year, just with how much moving there is with the transfer portal and stuff like that. You kind of have to be that steady head in the middle of the order, which I was trying to do early in the year. So just trying to stay relaxed and, having a mindset of, hey, these college pitchers are good and they know your weaknesses, so you'll probably only get one really good pitch to hit every at bat. You have to take advantage. And, I was able to do that right now. So it was great.
First Butler player to be drafted since 2019. Two were drafted at that point in time. Ryan Pepio and Harrison Freed both were draft picks in the 3rd and 13th round, respectively, 6 years ago. To represent Butler as a pro baseball player, what does that mean to you?
Oh, man. It means the world. Growing up, I was always a Butler fan. It's hard not to be in 2010 and 2011 as an 8 and 9-year-old kid, looking at Gordon Hayward and Brad Stevens going to these back-to-back Final Fours, and having a lot of electricity in the sports world for Indiana, which doesn't happen often except for this past NBA season. And I always the Butler basketball camps, and talked to Shelvin Mack a lot and Roosevelt Jones, which are two of my favorite guys still to this day. And then being able to go and play there and have my family be at every single game was just a blessing. And being a hometown kid means a lot. And especially coming from a Big East school, which isn't a very power conference in baseball. It means a lot to carry that on my shoulders. Butler is a program that is still up and coming, and Blake Beamer, I have no doubt he's going to have him in a regional here in the next 3 years. It means a lot to me because I've never been the kid who's been recruited a lot, and every game I'm just trying to prove that, hey, the Big East baseball is legit, and we're here to stay.
All right, so how many different sports did you play at Brebeuf Jesuit? Since you're quoting basketball, was there basketball, football, anything else, or by the time you got to Brebeuf, was it all baseball?
Yeah. So freshman year, I played basketball and baseball. And I was 5'7" at the time. So I was a little point guard, shooting guard mix thing. I really didn't know how to dribble. So I didn't really think basketball was in the future, and quit after my freshman year to just focus on baseball fully. And then my sophomore to junior year, I grew to 6'3", and my dad still kicks me for that to this day. But I still love basketball, but I'm just not a hooper like I used to be.
As a good friend of the guy that would have been your high school basketball coach, and Todd Howard, I'm waiting for a text on him right now, listening to that conversation. I also got some intel on you from our good buddy Mike Freeman, and he said you did a heck of a job throwing bowls at Red Panda earlier this year. So tell me about what the fall internship was like working for Butler Sports.
Oh man, it was a dream. I worked very close with Lindsey Sparks and Mike Freeman, Kendall Hedgen, Kelsey Bolin, all great people in the Butler marketing department. And I worked football, men's, women's soccer, and then volleyball, and then obviously men's and women's basketball, which is the mecca of Butler University. So I did everything from writing game programs, doing the in-game entertainment, like during timeouts, all the shooting stuff. I had a lot of picking the contestants and stuff like that. Pre-game, I threw a lot of towels and basketballs to fans. But yeah, the crowning moment of that entire thing was definitely Red Panda, who's probably the GOAT of halftime entertainment. And we met her, and they needed someone to throw bowls, and everyone looked at the one baseball player in the room and said, "You're doing it." So I had no practice, and I kind of just went out there. Her hands were a little shaky, but she did an incredible job like she always does.
You got credit for outfield assist on those in terms of your season stats as well. All right, before we let you go, obviously your goal is to be a major league player, to get there as soon as possible. But on average, it's going to take a guy 3, 4, 5, 6 years, if not longer, to get there. Or is there a pitcher or two that you're already starting to let yourself dream about? Man, I would love to stare this guy down in the batter's box. Who is that guy or guys now? You're like, I hope that guy's still there. I want a shot at him down the road.
I'll give you 3.
Okay.
I'm a Yankee fan, so if Garrett Cole's still there, I would love to face Garrett Cole. Paul Skeens, I think, would probably be a popular answer here. I mean, that guy's legit. And then probably the new Jacob Mizrahi kid for the Brewers. He's electric. 97-mile-an-hour sliders. It would be probably a really hard at bat, but I don't think you could ask for much more.
Well, you just named 2 former Indianapolis Indians in that group as well, which makes it all the more cool. Jack, we'll be cheering for you, buddy. Thanks for the time. I know you're busy. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You got it. Jack Maroknik again from Brebeuf and from Butler. Thanks to he and Gable Pentecost for joining us in the program. And thanks to Seth Michael from Taylor, and thanks to Kit Stetzel from Butler. turning those interviews very quickly. As their names are getting tossed around the draft, I emailed both of those two gentlemen that work in sports information for those two schools yesterday afternoon. I had Gable booked by yesterday. I had Jack booked by last night. So, guys, thank you for your help behind the scenes in making that happen. Hope you enjoyed those conversations. You can go back and listen to them anytime on the podcast page at 1075thefan.com. Maybe one of the greatest acts of self-discipline I've had in recent days is that Cluster Truck got delivered about 20 minutes ago, and James and I have not torn it open yet. That will happen during the break, and we'll tell you all about it when we come back on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
is the Bet365 Command Center. Get your race updates here all month long and make sure to enter for your chance to win $500 by predicting the winner of this year's race on July 27th. Go to 1075thefan.com to enter. Now, here's your 2025 race update brought to you by Bet365.
Last year was the return of NASCAR on the oval after 3 years of it being held on the road course, which means if you go strictly by the oval, there are just 3 winners that have won on this course in a Cup car that will be racing in the Brickyard 400 coming up next Sunday. Those drivers are Kyle Busch in 2015 and 2016, Brad Keselowski in 2018, and Kyle Larson, who won last year's event on July 21st. And that's the latest from Bet365 Command Center.
The Ride with JMV.
But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I do believe that was Big Papa Pump. Holler if you hear me. See, John wouldn't get that reference. James knows that is right in my wheelhouse. 317-239-1070. Hungry eyes. I'm not sure if my eyes are hungry. I'm not sure if anything is hungry at this point. After our friends from Cluster Truck stopped by, thanks, Evan Sherrill, the good folks at Cluster Truck, I did have to take a pause from the Lazy Burrito to stay awake while hosting this show. Thankfully, I brought coffee in with me. But if you hear my mouth water a little bit more as I'm talking to you, it's because I'm about halfway through a Lazy Burrito, which means that no dinner for me at the Rakestraw household tonight. And I haven't gotten to the cookie yet, nor the small order of tater tots. The wings for James to go with tater tots as well, and 2 cookies for him. Thanks to our friends at Cluster Truck for stopping by. Thanks to you that interacted with us and continue to do so in terms of Twitter. Again, I've got a poll and I have got a picture in which you can be a part of the program as well. The poll is from the start of the show. The picture I kind of threw up there about 30 minutes ago at Greg Rakestraw is where you can follow along on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it these days. First of all, the poll question: which of these options is your likely TV streaming viewing for the evening? MLB All-Star Game, 26%. Fever Game at 48%. Neither of the two, also 26%. The other thing that I went to was the picture that I tried to do the best that I possibly could of using my play-by-play skills. But frankly, I think I did it justice, but I'm not sure that there's any way to do it other than just you going and looking. And it was not the highlight of the Johnny Furphy dunk from last night's Summer League game, but was the after effect of Furphy, one hand on the rim, ball going through the net, and it looks like the soul is literally being taken out of Noah Essengay. Again, I think that's how he says his name, in the process. I saw somebody's comment on another tweet about this. Basically, it looks like an AI-generated image. I would agree with that. But no, I think that actually happened in real life, the expression that his face was making. So I basically went to Twitter and said, hey, if you want to help me out here and how you would describe this, new hour, new Twitter X interaction for my substitute teaching duties on the Fan. The best way to describe this picture is blank. Channel your best Gene Rayburn and the Match Game. The best way to describe this picture is, go back to Twitter, C said tweet, quote tweet it, retweet it, respond, whatever the case may be as we get interactive at Greg Rakestraw. The guest portion of the program has now come to an end. The portion of the program where you and I get to chat it up is now fully underway. 317-239-1070 is the telephone number in which you can use to join us. And frankly, it can be topic or topics of your choice. I am planning on letting the Miles Turner conversation finally start to fade off into Bolivian, to use the Mike Tyson terminology. I thought there, and I'm trying to remember whether it was James this morning on the morning show or whether it was someplace else that I heard this, and I think it was James. but basically saying you need to remember, and maybe it was Dan Patrick, I don't know. But basically, as somebody said, you got to remember those comments aren't going to be heard just in Milwaukee. Those comments are going to be heard in Indianapolis. And again, I'll make a Violent Femmes musical reference here, which is often associated with Miles Turner. This will go down on your permanent record. When anybody from Indianapolis thinks about you, the first thing right now, maybe not down the road, but the first thing that they're going to think about is what you had to say about being more competitive. That is now stuck with you from now for some people forever, but for most for a long time. But there's frankly nothing new on that front. He can't take it back. He's not coming back to the Indiana Pacers. He's going to the Milwaukee Bucks. You want to talk about it? Great. You want to move on? That's fine too. We are now a day closer to the start of training camp for the Indianapolis Colts, as in players are moving in 7 days from now. And there are some Colts conversations that I am planning on having on the show today, and we can have those of the current iteration. But the two things that I have kind of queued up and want to talk about are more of a historical variety. One thing that I saw like 10 days ago and haven't had a chance to talk about in my various different on-air responsibilities since that time, and one story that got posted this morning on ESPN.com. And I'll talk about both of those because, frankly, I think time is going to allow, if not in the next segment, then at some point in time during the 5 o'clock hour. But for the rest of the show, your phone calls will take priority. 317-239-1070. Kenny is the first to take us up on said offer. Good afternoon, Kenny. How you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. You were talking about Furphy earlier, putting that dunk on, dude. That's what you call a posterization.
That's even worse than a poster, because normally in a poster, the poster is that like your back is on the poster, like your name is attached to that dude dunking on you. Because he's facing the other way, we see his facial reaction. And again, it looks like he just took his lunch money by $1 million is one of the ways I would describe that, Kenny.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And the cool thing is, if they do make a poster, it'll keep giving and giving every time we get a good look at it.
Anything else for us, Kenny?
That's it, brother. Have a blessed day.
Kenny, you do the same. And again, maybe because I'm not a mean-spirited person, like I don't have any reason to A, know who that kid is, but B, I hope good things for him. He's like literally a first-round pick. He's the 12th pick of this year's NBA draft. I hope he has a phenomenal career, but again, that picture, that's going to live with you for a long time. Yes, sir.
Just had a longtime high school assistant coach call in wanting to know your opinion on the high school transfer rule.
But didn't want to hop on the show?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure I've got the proper amount of time in this segment to get to it. I will get to it at some point in time. That I will promise you. I would give you the 30,000-foot view of it's kind of the way of the world. I understand it. I may not necessarily like it. And I think there's probably a lot of things that would fall into the category of the law of unintended consequences. But I will get to that point at some point in time. Keep those telephone calls coming. Keep interacting with us on Twitter as well. And again, it's you and me for the remainder of the program. But during the break, I'm going back to eating my cluster truck. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Sis boom bar. Describe the sound made when a sheep explodes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I do believe that's Bare Naked Ladies. It's all been done before. Perhaps that's how it describes MLB home run derbies. We touched on that briefly. We'll talk about the All-Star game as a follow-up to this. But when the Bare Naked Ladies are playing, that means you get to call the station and potentially get yourself a pair of concert tickets. They're playing at Everwise. That show is coming up on Sunday, and it is Fastball that is with them. And who else am I blanking on, James, that you told me a day ago that is also playing with the Bare Naked Ladies? The other band in action is?
Sugar Ray.
I Just Want to Fly. Yes, 239-1070, the telephone number. Call the number 4. You are going to get a pair of tickets to see the Bare Naked Ladies and Fastball and Sugar Ray at Everwise coming up on Sunday. Now, while I thought the MLB Home Run Derby was good last night and was entertaining, again, I think they could simplify it and make it easier for everybody involved. It has become to some degree in vogue to bash on the MLB All-Star Game. And I think the MLB All-Star Game is the best of the true All-Star games because it is the closest thing to the actual game that is going to be. It does not need to be determining who is going to have home field advantage in the World Series. Thankfully, we have jettisoned that concept over the last few years. And to me, what they have really done to make the All-Star Game as good as it can be, at least for the audience that are watching on television, and clearly they have carried this concept on to regular season games. Like a lot of these coaches' interviews are mind-numbingly bad during games. We can do without that. But in an All-Star game, when you're a little more relaxed and you've got players wearing IFB and having a conversation at first base, in the outfield, etc., I think that's pretty good. I think that makes for entertaining television. Talking to a player on a night like this, like right after, they just got lifted from the game, that you can do. At some point in time, you can just kind of go, you know what? We have done as much with this as we can possibly do. And that is the case for the All-Star Game. Again, one of the things that we have talked about, seemingly for the last 15, 20 years, is that the All-Star Game when we were growing up, assuming you're a similar age as to me, who is a similar age as to the guy that normally hosts this show, if you're a child of the 70s or 80s, you remember what it was like to have access to like one game a week, Sunday on or Saturday afternoon on NBC. Or you were going to get whatever team was on your local television outlet. For me as a kid, it was the Reds. The people that are my age would tell you, well, I got to see both the Braves and the Cubs on TBS and WGN, and that was great. It meant you got to see more baseball. I didn't have access to that. But still, even if you were lucky enough to have cable before 1990, you at least got the Braves every day, you got the Cubs every day, and whatever your favorite regional team might be, plus the national game of the week. I referenced 1990. That is when the baseball deal kicked in with ESPN. One that may or may not be going away, depending on what the media rights conversation is these days in terms of what a new long-term partner is going to be. But really now with, whatever was called extra innings or whatever it's referred to now, you can watch, other than stupid blackout rules, you can watch whatever your favorite team is. Now I've got Marquee Sports Network on my cable system. If I don't watch the Cubs, I'm going to watch the Cubs. Because the Reds are on FanDuel, I can watch the Reds. I get the games that are on TBS, the games that are on FS1, the games that are on MLB Network. Access to watching games is as good as it ever has been from a consumer standpoint, which frankly renders the All-Star Game a little less important in terms of showcasing other stars because you can go out and find them. Although I frankly have reverted back now to much more being that casual fan of the game. And much like I did on Friday afternoon, this is where I start to go, hey, I admit I don't watch anywhere near as much baseball as I used to. And so I did this with the assistance of Eddie on Friday. I think I can do this just by typing this in and try to go, all right, I need to look up whom the 8 home run derby participants were last night. And then I will be completely honest with you. Here are the ones that I knew who they were, okay? Cal Raleigh, obviously, big dumper. Would I have known who that was 2 months ago? No. But I now know who it is. O'Neal Cruz. I know who that is because he played here. He played for the Indianapolis Indians. James Wood. No. Had not heard of him before last night. Byron Buxton. He has played for the Twins long enough. I have a general idea as to who Byron Buxton is. Matt Olson. Jimmy Olsen, yes. Greg Olsen, yes. There were 2 Greg Olsons back in the day. One was a catcher, one was a pitcher. Again, if you played in the 80s or 90s, I kind of know who you are. This Matt Olson, I got nothing. Junior Caminero. I knew a guy named Junior who drove a Camaro, but I don't know who Junior Caminero is. Brett Rooker. I'm pretty sure. Oh, that was Michael Rooker. It was on The Walking Dead. Was in
Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, as well.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I want to say Cole Trickle. Days of Thunder. There we go. But in my house, Walking Dead is what Michael Rooker was in. Jazz Chisholm. Knew he plays for the Yankees or played for the Yankees at some point in time. So, again, that's not a baseball thing. That's a me thing. And so, frankly, the All-Star game has kind of gotten back to where me, not society, me needs to watch this just to familiarize myself because not baseball baseball needs to bring me back. No, I don't have that. Okay, I do have an ego, but not on this subject. I know it's more of a me thing that has drifted away from the sport than it used to be. But the All-Star game falls into the category of it is what it is. It's not for the hardcore fan. The hardcore fan now has access to watching pretty much every game and any game they want with maybe a blackout restriction or 2 in a market like Indianapolis. But even those are lesser than they used to be. The All-Star game is for the casual fan who doesn't watch very often. And I think the stuff they have done with the game to bring as many player interviews and conversations and things like that, I think that's really cool. It's okay to just be an exhibition game. It's okay for it to be a game that, frankly, nobody cares about the outcome as soon as the game is over with. But if I'm going to probably spend time watching something tonight from a sports standpoint, honestly, it's probably going to be the Fever game. It's probably what I'm watching. You don't have to watch the Fever game. You don't have to do anything. Still a free country, I think. But in terms of the Fever game, you can listen to it on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. John Nolan will have the call both tonight and tomorrow night. Again, the Fever will be playing in Boston against the Connecticut Sun this evening. Tomorrow night against the New York Liberty. I do believe ESPN has tonight's game and then local television on Channel 13, I think, for tomorrow night's game, i.e., we tried to get Pat Boylan's show, literally was hopping a flight during the show to New York City. So he didn't make the first leg of the trip, making the second leg of the trip to do the Fever and Liberty game tomorrow night. I can now get to a break and finally finish that lazy burrito. The age-old question was, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? The answer was 3. How many commercial breaks on John's show does it take to finish a lazy burrito from Cluster Truck, even professional eater as myself? The answer is 3. 2 hours down, 1 hour left to go. More of your telephone calls, your tweets, your emails, ship-to-shore communication, carrier pigeon, etc. when we come back on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Son, you got a panty on your head. You drive fast, eh?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Only 1 hour without JMV left on this program until Thursday. You get John on Wednesday and Friday of this week. Frankly, John gets some downtime. Mine more or less begins when I'm done talking about 555. Hanging around for a couple of days, making myself scarce for about 7 or 8 days. Back to the grind of Brickyard weekend, of Colts training camp, and beyond after that. But be one of the rare times you don't hear much of me around here, and for that, you should all be thankful. Let's get to Darren's telephone call, and others can chime in as well. 317-239-1070. Darren, my apologies for not getting to you in the last segment of the show. How are you today?
No worries. Great. Thank you. My wife and I are parents of 4 children, 14, 17-year-old girls, 19 and 22-year-old sons, all played through the Fishers program at some point, basketball. Our house loves basketball. I wonder what you think it will take for the national coverage to stop talking about the WNBA as just a women's thing and not just a true sport. It's always like inspiring girls. My sons love the WNBA.
Right.
They love to watch all the teams play, and my daughters love NBA. And second, real quick, they did a piece on Jenny Buchik the other day during the NBA game. I think she's going to be a great head coach someday, and I hope when that happens they don't cover it just that she's a woman, that she's a great basketball mind, a great leader, and knows her stuff.
Darren,
what are your thoughts?
Sure, and Darren, thanks for the telephone call. I frankly think that is starting to happen, but like with everything, Darren, it just takes time. To be honest with you, and I have kind of said this behind the scenes, I think this is very interesting in terms of almost a programming / almost like collegiate level of study in terms of, because something in sports is popular doesn't necessarily mean it's a sports talk radio topic. In other words, just how much are the Indiana Fever going to be a part of the local sports conversation? And Darren, I know you acknowledged and said, hey, from a national standpoint, and that's a fair question too, but I will take it from more of a local standpoint. Has it been the dominant topic of what we have talked about today? No. We've talked NASCAR with Adam Alexander. We're actually going to bring that conversation back to you in the next segment of the show. We had 2 phenomenal conversations, 2 kids I'll be rooting for during the 4 o'clock hour. Both guys that heard their name drafted in the MLB draft yesterday. Gable Pentecost of Taylor University, 6th round of the Houston Astros. Jack Marachnik, 11th round of the Washington Nationals from Buff High School, as well as Butler University. Go back and listen to those anytime on the podcast page at 1075thefan.com. I've talked All-Star Game. I've got some Colts stuff that I kind of want to queue up, and maybe I'll get to that coming up here in a matter of moments. But we've kind of circled in and around the Fever throughout the course of the show. For example, the poll question today, and you can keep voting on it for the remainder of the hour, but the Indiana Fever have had a clear lead in this poll question all day long. I gave you 3 options. What are you watching on TV tonight? And there'll be All-Star Game, Fever Game, neither of the 2. The Fever Game, and again, we're in Indianapolis. This isn't nationwide, but the Fever Game is getting more votes than the other 2 options combined. Again, take that as a sign. And I heard a promo that's been playing on the radio station, John talking about before this weekend when they won back-to-back games, the struggles of the Fever. And to me, that's almost kind of a sign to the answer of your question, Darren, is basically when we talk about the Fever in a very similar fashion to how we talk about the Colts or how we talk about the Pacers, that is like the ultimate sign of, quote, have you made it or not? If we're criticizing playing decisions and coaching decisions in the same exact way we would talk about a guy's sport, that's your sign. And so having television ratings, having radio ratings, here's another indication that I can give you. Like, I have had people in the industry, as in the radio industry, ask me, hey, do you think we can get the Fever games in our radio station coming up? And I haven't worked for Network Indiana in like 7 years. But people reach out to me and go, hey, this thing's a phenomenon. People are asking for it. We want to be able to bring this to people. Again, that is a sign that progress is being made, Darren, to exactly what you were talking about. At the end of the 4:30-ish segment of the show, we had a caller that relayed a question to James but didn't want to stay on hold and basically wanted to get my answer to the high school version of the transfer portal that we are going through with the Indiana High School Athletic Association for the first time. I did not want to make it seem that I was dodging that question. So it's been about 25, 30 minutes, and I gave it kind of the 30,000-foot view answer, the 30 to 60-second answer. Before I do anything else, allow me to give you my honest take on it. And frankly, how I feel about it is to some degree in lockstep with how I feel about the college version of the rule, but I will have one big differentiator that I'll add on the back end, okay? I understand it. I understand the logic behind it, especially at the college level. I immediately throw the BS flag when I hear coaches complain about it in terms of guys going someplace else, in terms of transferring up to get an opportunity and, frankly, get more money, or transferring down to get more playing time. Knowing coaches have had that freedom of movement, players have not. So of all people criticizing college transfers, the last group that I want to hear ever do that is college coaches. Period. End of sentence. So by that same logic, I understand the desire to simply say, I want to move, I want to change schools for athletic reasons. You are now allowed to do that up to a certain point as a high school student athlete. Coaching in high school, you don't have guys moving around the way that you do at the college level, and frankly, not doing it for financial reasons. Does it happen? Certainly. Does it happen as much? No. The obvious difference is, at the level in college we are talking about, yes, these athletes can get an education, but we really have put that on the back burner. It's about getting the bag, and if you get a degree, hey, good on you. You took advantage of the opportunity. But now you're much more focused about the dollars and cents and less about the degree. At the high school level, it still needs to be about the educational process. I can literally hear the voice of Paul Neidig in my head, the second classroom. It's one of the mantras that the IHSA has. And as somebody that played 3 sports in high school, I would agree with that completely. So, again, I understand the logic behind it. It doesn't mean I necessarily am a fan of it, but that is where the difference lies at the high school level versus the college level. So I hope that gives you a legitimate answer to your question. Thanks for dialing in. Angelo is up next, 317-239-1070. Hello, Angelo.
Greg, what's up, brother? How are you?
Folks, I'm going to go ahead and give this away a little bit. This is the parent of one of the top basketball recruits in the state. You're calling in to tell us where he's going to play in 2 years, right? That's why you called in today.
We got a little bit of work ahead of us, Greg, but it's a blessing to kind of be in a position he's in right now. But yeah, man, it's been exciting and fun.
All right, so for those that don't know, this is my buddy Angelo Smith, played at Lawrence North, played at Xavier, played at IUPUI, one of my favorite people I've ever been around, just period, but in terms of covering in my days at IUPUI. And his son Noah has had a really good summer. He's heading back to Plainfield for his senior year. So other than just catching up, what do I owe the honor of this conversation to?
Well, it's funny you're talking about this, Greg, and I just wanted to give a huge shout-out. So Noah's AAU team, Grand Park Premier, located out there in Westfield.
Yep.
They just finished up the regular season for their Puma Pro 16 AAU circuit. So a lot of coaches and recruiters, Greg, they consider the Puma Pro 16 right behind, Nike EYBL as one of the top AAU leagues in the country. Grand Park just finished 18-1.
Okay.
They only lost one game the entire spring and summer, and they are prepping for a huge Puma tournament here in Bryan, Texas. It takes place this week. They captured the number 1 seed in the tournament. This whole team is built of all Indiana guys. You got my son, you mentioned Noah Smith at Plainfield starting point guard, Landon Gilliard. You've got Barron Walker from Noblesville, Evan Harrell from Carmel, Mason Darrell from Crown Point, Andrew Hefner from Westfield. So you've got a huge group of just Indiana born and raised kids. They're doing their thing. They're trying to get this Puma championship. So I just wanted to highlight this team. They've been together, Greg, for probably the past 5-6 years. And they're a great group of guys. And it'd be really cool if they could finish off their last AAU season winning a national championship with under the Puma Pro Circuit. So I just wanted to share some
Of course.
on them. These guys have been open.
Well, of course. Well, listen, last time I saw you and Noah was back in June, and Noah needs to put a little weight on. When do you need me to come over and offer him some dietary tips about putting some weight on, Angelo?
Anytime, brother. Anytime. We're due for lunch anyway, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
When you're free, and I'll make sure he's with me.
In all seriousness, and again, I know how much you love your son, and he gets to make the decision. Any idea when you and he would like to make that call on where his next season is going to take place?
So the goal, hopefully, is make that call before the start of the senior year. So we've got a couple of official visits set here within the next month or so. We'll head to DePaul out of Chicago here the first part of August. And then we've got a couple of other that we're trying to set up right now, Greg. But you know how it is with the transfer portal and college recruiting, and don't get me started on that. But it's completely different from when I played. So,
I can hear Angelo's voice right now. Damn it, I had to sit for a year when I was in college, when I transferred, let alone the money aspect of it as well. Buddy, you be good. I appreciate you calling me, man, and we will do lunch very soon. You take care, okay?
Love you, Greg. Thanks, brother.
You take care, brother. And I saw Angelo's name on the call screen. I said, I hope that's who this is, and that, yes. So his son Noah is one of the top players in the senior class. I wanted to call in and say hello. And best of luck to you and the Grand Park Premier team on the Puma circuit, and good luck down in Texas. And yes, my friend, we will catch up soon. That was unplanned, but what it does lead to is a wonderful segue. Now, I have referenced, what my Twitter feed has looked like all day long. I started my day, I caught up with 3 friends, 3 different clients I work with, and the middle one of them would be someplace that I have had a long affiliation with, and that would be what was IUPUI, what is now IU Indianapolis. And, for example, there's part of that relationship. I called Angelo's games in college almost, in fact, it was 20 years ago at this point. Sorry, Lo, I aged both of us by giving that away. But there were 3 pictures that I took and then shared with Twitter, and all got pretty good responses, too. So the first one that I did, because when you go visit the IU Indy athletic office, unless you park next to the building illegally, you're parking on the 5th floor of the parking garage. But what that does do is gives you a great view of downtown. But it also shows you how choice the view from what used to be the Indianapolis Tennis Center was of downtown Indy. And I was lucky enough to play on those courts as a college athlete back when I actually was something close to an athlete, a different millennium ago, and then cover them as a pro, literally calling matches with Bud Collins for a couple of years and watching some of the best players on the planet, like the summer that Andy Roddick won the U.S. Open, when he won, or at least participated in, I forgot if he won at this, I think he did, the 2003 Indianapolis Tennis Championships, as I think they were called, first year after the RCA sponsorship came to an end. Well, obviously that place has been gone for 16 years, but finally something is going in its stead. The gym, as in the late Jim Morris, the new arena for IU Indy, which is set to debut next fall. Some significant progress has been made. I took a picture of that is on my Twitter feed. You can go check that out if you haven't had the time. Then when I went inside to visit with my friends Lauren and Ed and Luke, and I ran into Ben Hallett, the new basketball coach at IU Indy, Chris Johnson, longtime soccer coach, Jared Green, etc. Pretty much named like half the IU Indianapolis athletic staff as part of that conversation. There were two other pictures that caught my attention. One of those, you get a chance for a good Bob Lovell picture from the 80s. Brother, you're jumping all over that. So this would be pre-beard. I can tell you the Bob Lovell story. Brother, I was on this trip to Cape Cod, and I was out there on the seaside, and I thought, you know what? A beard would look good on me, and Penny hadn't let me shave it since. I get a little more southern twang in my voice than Bob does, but you kind of get the general cadence there. Bob's stash, Bob with a stash is absolutely legendary. Think of a more bookish Tom Selleck from the 80s.
That is exactly who I was about to ask you, if it was a Tom Selleck stash.
If he open up a collar and tease the chest hair, you give him a Detroit Tigers hat, he can nail it. Because he would wear glasses. Mm-hmm. So think of Tom Selleck with glasses. Like if Tom Selleck were your professor, that would be 1986 Bob Lovell is what that would be. So I've seen a lot of those pictures over the years. This was a new one that I came across in the athletic office. And the other one, again, means something to me and Angelo. I saw what I thought was perhaps like the first picture that Ron Hunter took as the head coach at IU Indianapolis with 5 players, only one of them I recognized, that being Jared Lux from his playing days at IUPUI. So I put that picture out into the Twitterverse as well. So if you are like me and had a long affiliation with what was IUPUI and what is now IU Indy, I took a bit of a walk down memory lane. So Angelo's phone call is fitting, so I can bring that up as well. They can go check the Twitter feed at Greg Rakestraw on Twitter. It was fun to be able to do that. All right. I promised you a little bit of conversation about the Colts. And yesterday, I channeled, and we learned that Smales had a first name on the program, and basically said, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I know the answers, but I know what the 2 questions are. And the 2 questions are kind of the only ones that I need to see answered, right now. Everything else is just details, man. Who's the starting quarterback? Are you going to make the playoffs? Obviously, one question leads to the other. We don't have the answer to one question for maybe 4 or 5 weeks. We don't have the answer to the other question for like 4 or 5 months. But I know Jake's doing tomorrow, here is the division preview. And you've heard the promo about Kevin and JB, most indispensable Colts. I gave you my 2 questions yesterday. Who's the starting quarterback? Is this team going to make the playoffs? And everything else to me is secondary. So when I saw some Colts conversations earlier this month, I'm probably gonna shuttle that. But a conversation I thought was really cool. If you don't know who Bill Barnwell is, if I said, hey, he's the guy that maybe you don't see that much on television, but he's friends with Scott Van Pelt. No, not the bald guy. That's Stanford Steve. Kind of the other guy that he will bring in to talk kind of big picture NFL stuff. Pretty well researched guy. Well, he posted this morning, and this would be the top 25 teams of the last 25 years. This is what you do when you get to round number territory, as in we're 25 years into a new century, and we're 25 years into a millennium. And when it's July and training camps are just opening, and you kind of need to have a little NFL content to keep the churn a-going. Now, obviously, for most of the first 10 years, that 25-year span, the Indianapolis Colts had some teams that you would think would qualify for the top 25 teams. And again, it wasn't just, hey, here are the 25 Super Bowl winners from those years ranked in order. No, there was some pretty good content. And to, maybe ruin the surprise for you, in case you're wondering, what was the best team of the 25? Well, it was a team that didn't win the Super Bowl. It was the unbeaten, until the last game, New England Patriots of 2007. They were deemed to be the best team of the last 25 years. And again, Bill stated in his article, hey, we're not just talking about what your playoff result was. We're talking about what you did during the regular season. And since they are the team that has taken, since the 72 Dolphins, the team that has taken the undefeated moniker the longest and kind of took a miracle play for them to be beaten, a win that we celebrate here in the Circle City of Indianapolis, well, frankly, logically, that makes sense. So the other thing that then would also logically make sense from that is that the best Indianapolis Colts team of the first 25 years of this century was that year's Indianapolis Colts that didn't win a playoff game. In fact, that's kind of what Bill said in his opening paragraph about said Indianapolis Colts team from 2007. His exact line was, this might be the best team in modern NFL history that didn't win a playoff game.
Do you mean 2005?
No, 2007. The 2007 Colts were undefeated until they played the Patriots in early November. The 2005 Indianapolis Colts, you are correct, were 13-0. But I can tell you that the common denominator of both the 05 and 07 Colts that made them, as we talked about, because we talked about this, frankly, kind of in a Pacers, standpoint 3 weeks ago. We would say, hey, up until the finals, the best, most of us that have been around long enough to tell you the best Pacers team wasn't the 2000 team that made the final. It was the 98 team that got beat by the Bulls in Game 7. That was the best NBA Pacers team. You can now argue that this past year's Pacers team, because they got so stinking close to winning that championship, they were actually the best Pacers team. Similar conversation for the Colts. The 2006 team won the Super Bowl championship. The better teams were probably 05 and 07, right before and right after it. And to me, even better than the 09 team that got beaten in the Super Bowl by the Saints. So that is what Bill is saying. Of the 25 best teams of the first 25 years, the Indianapolis Colts made that list one time, and it was that team in 2007. Billy freaking Volek, ring a bell to anybody? That was the guy that was the quarterback and not Phillip Rivers that beat the Colts on that day in the RCA Dome, which, by the way, the final football game in the history of the RCA Dome.
I think I just realized I was looking at a completely different top 25 list.
See, there are different top 25 lists. So there you go. The reason he cited was that the offense of that team was in the 89th percentile. The defense was in the 93rd percentile. The Colts during the regular season held the Patriots to their fewest points of any game. This is how good that Patriots team was. Fewest points was 24. And I remember Colts are up 20-10 in the fourth quarter. Randy Moss gets by the defense one time all day, helps curtail that lead. And that was the mid-season Super Bowl because the Colts had finally gotten over the mountaintop at the end of the 2006 season. And they were a better team in 07. But as soon as the Patriots traded for Randy Moss on draft weekend of April of 07, basically the rest of the league went, blank, and knew how good they would be, and then it was on. But that Colts team in 07 was every bit as good, if not even better offensively than the 05 team. And the 05 team, early in the season especially, kind of lit up some really bad competition. 2007, that wasn't the case. So it's an interesting read. I think and I'm a big fan of Bill Barnwell as well. So if you're looking for a little Colts historical conversation, That's a good piece to track down at ESPN.com. We'll take this quick time out. We're going to re-rack a conversation from the 3 o'clock hour. It's a great conversation with Adam Alexander. We will bring that your way as we count you down to next weekend's Brickyard 400 when we come back. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
is the Bet365 Command Center. Get your race updates here all month long and make sure to enter for your chance to win $500 by predicting the winner of this year's race on July 27th. Go to 1075thefan.com to enter. Now, here's your 2025 race update brought to you by Bet365.
It's a 2025 race update, but an update from 25 years ago. Was looking up to see who has won the fastest edition of the Brickyard 400. The answer was the 2000 winter in Bobby Labonte for Joe Gibbs Racing. His average speed, 155.912. The race took 2 hours, 33 minutes, and 56 seconds. Bobby Labonte won the 7th edition of the Brickyard 400. The 32nd NASCAR race weekend in Indianapolis is next weekend, and your place for the race is right here, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
We have the holy hand grenade.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Right. 1, 2, 5.
Lisa.
3.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Did he not learn that 5 was right out? I mean, the guy just told him that right before he launched the holy hand grenade of Antioch. Look at the bones. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. An interview so nice, we're going to play it twice. You just heard from the Bet365 Command Center. In case you weren't listening at 3:30, I thought Adam Alexander, North Central graduate, was radio gold. Let's bring you back that conversation from 2 hours ago. In for JMV, he is back tomorrow. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. And yes, you heard the Bet365 Command Center. They are kind of presenting sponsor, one of them, of our Brickyard weekend coverage, which really ramps up next week, but we start talking about it now. And a good guy to do that and a variety of things would be Adam Alexander. And first of all, buddy, it's good to talk to you. How are you?
Doing great. It's so awesome to be on with you, Greg, and you and I talk and communicate from time to time, but it's good to do it on the air, and always appreciate everything you bring, and appreciate you having me on.
I am Adam's conduit to all things Indiana high school sports down in the Charlotte area, so hence that's a lot of our conversation. When I need to talk NASCAR, he's always there for me, and we greatly appreciate that. My memory would tell me you have been a part of radio network coverage at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Is next Sunday the first race that you're going to be in the primary announcer's chair to announce at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
For sure. No doubt about that. I have done some turn work for the 500, the Brickyard 400. I was on pit road for a few Indy 500s on the radio network. And then I did the NASCAR Hot Pass stuff when that was going on, like 07, 08, so I was around a little bit when all that was going on with DirecTV. But, yeah, this is the first time I've been able to sit in the pagoda on race day and call a NASCAR event or call an event of any kind at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So that's really exciting.
Listen, knowing you're more comfortable talking about 40 different race cars than talking about yourself. But I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself for a moment. You grow up wanting to do this as a kid, maybe not knowing that racing was going to be the avenue, but you wanted to be a sportscaster. As we talked about, obviously Jake was on before me. The three of us are all friends. You two guys grew up together. Next Sunday, you literally get to I'm getting goosebumps asking this question. You get to achieve a life's dream. An Indianapolis kid is going to call a major race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Your thoughts on the completion of that sentence?
I've got to be honest, I've tried to not think about it that way because I feel like when you do that, it just adds pressure, but I'll enjoy the moment. And I talked to someone else about this, and I said, I think I'd be kidding myself if I didn't feel like there'd be more butterflies on race morning next weekend than there has been throughout our run. And, I would say the best comparison I have is I've been now in the Charlotte area for close to 15 years and been doing NASCAR stuff for almost 25. Actually, it has been 25 years now of NASCAR broadcasting. And when I was doing the Amazon Prime stuff, their first race was the Coke 600. So it's, and that's a crown jewel.
Yep.
And that was probably the closest comparison I have to that feeling you get to be a part of a major event and be in that position where, you're a facilitator on race day for a TV network. So, yeah, it's going to be something special to be back in Indy. It's always great to go home regardless of why you're there, but to be there in this capacity will be really cool for me. And And I look forward to it and look forward to sharing that moment with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Letarte. They've been tremendous teammates, and we've had such a good time together, and that'll be our last broadcast on TNT. So there will be a lot of emotions for many reasons next weekend.
All right, as I look at the schedule, I see Shane Van Gisbergen's been winning a bunch lately because obviously it's been road course or street course action. But I'm also seeing this thing called Challenge Round and Championship Round. Explain to somebody like me that kind of parachutes in for this month. Talk about these things. What exactly is Challenge Round and Championship Round? Please explain.
Well, this is the first year of a new media rights deal in NASCAR, and Fox and NBC were back, and then Amazon Prime came in and said, we want to be a part of this, and TNT, Turner Sports came in and said, we'd like a few races in the summer as well. And so that's how it's divided up. Amazon got 5, Turner got 5. And in TNT, the Turner folks said, you know what, we want to do something to make our 5 weeks unique and special. And so they kind of playing off of some of the NBA coverage they've done, said, what if we do like an in-season tournament and we put a bracket together? And so that's what happened. And we took the 5 weeks that were on Turner, and actually it all began the 3 weeks prior to determine who's in. But they took the top 32 drivers. They seeded it 132, 231, and so on. They built a bracket, and each week, in addition to the race and all the things that go on within a NASCAR event, you had the bracket, and you had these head-to-head matchups, and it was real simple. You finish in front of your guy, you move on to next week. And there have been some upsets, and actually there were a lot of upsets week 1 because the first race in this deal was at Atlanta Motor Speedway, now Echo Park Speedway, and it's in the draft, and we had a big crash and took out some great drivers. And so the Cinderella story right now is Ty Dillon, a kid that won an Xfinity race a number of years ago at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He's Richard Childress' grandson, the iconic owner who's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He beat Denny Hamlin. He beat Brad Keselowski. He got Alex Bowman on the last lap at Sonoma, and he's down now to the Final 4. So we'll get it down to 2, pare it down to 2 this weekend at Dover, and there will be 2 drivers going head-to-head for $1 million next weekend at Indianapolis.
You just explained the motivation with that last phrase in terms of the purse that is along with it. From a playoff standpoint, in that era, which we are now approaching maybe 20 years of a playoff, if not a little bit more of that in NASCAR, this has tended to be one of the last races heading into it, or kind of an important key stretch. Has the playoff format changed at all for 2025, Adam?
Playoff format is the same, but I would say that the positioning of it has been upset a little bit, and it's because of someone that you mentioned, Shane Van Gisbergen. You know, he came and started racing in NASCAR 2 years ago, won in his first ever start on the streets of Chicago, and it was like, wow, this, supercar racer from New Zealand has really got it. Everyone knew his strengths would be street course racing, road course racing. He was a rookie last year in Xfinity. He made the playoffs because he won races on road courses and put himself in. They put him in a cup car this year running for Rookie of the Year. He's taken advantage. He didn't win at Circuit of the Americas, the opening race on the road in Austin, Texas, but he's won the 3 races since. Mexico City on the streets of Chicago, and most recently Sunday at Sonoma. So when you have a driver like that doesn't have a lot of oval experience and quite honestly is a little bit like a duck out of water, but is almost unbeatable on the road courses, that kind of takes a playoff spot. And so he's upset the apple cart a little bit with what he's been able to accomplish. So that is changed the thought process a little bit. But the one thing that hasn't changed, and you said it, when you get down to late July, early August, you're heading down the stretch of the regular season, there's a lot of pressure. And right now we've had 12 winners, so 12 of 16 spots are taken, only 4 remain. There will be 5 races left in the regular season when we get to Indianapolis next week. So it's very intense at that cut line to determine who would get in on points, and some drivers in a must-win are willing to do anything, and including throwing those Hail Marys on strategy. So I feel like in many ways we're going to be in for a real we get to Indy next weekend.
Adam Alexander, he will have the call next Sunday on TNT for the Brickyard 400. Joining us here, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. My name is Greg Rakestraw, in for JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. In the early days of this race, and early days, I'm saying first 10, 15 years, we were spoiled. Jeff Gordon kept winning. Tony Stewart then joined the party. South Bend's Ryan Newman, you get the comparison. You know where I'm leading you here. Chase Briscoe, seemingly things are going well. He's 8th in the points in his first year driving for Joe Gibbs. What has his season been like for the Mitchell, Indiana native?
It's gotten better and better in recent weeks, and I would say his momentum is ramping at just the right time to do what all those guys that you just mentioned have done, and that is get a hometown win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I say hometown, Mitchell, Indiana,
Close
not
enough.
too far down the road, but this is his place, right? If he could pick a spot to do it, this would be it. It's his first year at Joe Gibbs Racing, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with driving for that organization. But there's also some irony. As a kid that grew up in Indiana, Tony Stewart was his guy, and he grew up playing the NASCAR video games in the Tony Stewart Home Depot uniform. I mean, he knows what it's about, and so this is a little bit of a full circle moment for him, and for him, 20 years after Tony got it done, to be able to win, at Indy and to do all that would be amazing. And I would say this too, there aren't a lot of tracks like Indianapolis on the schedule. But if there is one that is comparable, if you were to put another in the same category, you would quickly identify Pocono as that place. And who won at Pocono last month? Chase Briscoe. So not only does he have some momentum going right now, they were second over the weekend, and he was the only driver that could stay within the same zip code of Shane Van Gisbergen at Sonoma. They just really have hit the sweet spot at this style of racetrack. So I can't wait. I'm happy for him. I'm excited for him. And he wants to win more races, so he's got those playoff points once we get to the postseason to help him as he tries to run down a championship. So it's a great time to be Chase Briscoe, no doubt.
Final thing before we let you go, and again, I want to be appreciative of the effort that he made, but to me, the storyline for Kyle Larson in the month of May here was that he frankly wasn't a story. He never kind of really threatened to be in the Fast 6, Fast 12, to be potentially a race winner, and obviously, crashed out and was able to get to Charlotte in plenty of time. How was his month of May in Indy viewed by those in the NASCAR garages, Adam?
I feel like everyone celebrates Kyle because he's so good,
Yep.
and everyone roots for him when he comes to Indy to run the 500 because it's kind of, what you do in NASCAR circles. You want to see him do well, and that's been the case with all those drivers that have attempted the double. Unfortunately for Kyle, he did Memorial Day weekend, and there was all the hype and everything that went into that. And since that time, they really, have struggled. He actually qualified well for the Coke 600 and led a bunch of laps early. He had not led laps since then until over the weekend at Sonoma, and he did it through a cycle of green flag pit stops. So they are looking to get back on track. Dover this weekend is a great place for him, and we know he won last year at Indianapolis. So maybe this will be a turning point for him. But in regard to Indianapolis, everyone celebrates what he did, even though expectations were high and you want to see the best, and he didn't get everything out of that everyone would have hoped. The support was there, and now we'll see if they can get back on track on the NASCAR side, because if they do, we know his talent level and what he's capable of come the fall and trying to win his second NASCAR championship.
I feel like this conversation has been one-sided. So before I let you go, any high school questions I can answer for you before I let you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday?
You sound like my wife. This conversation has been one-sided, I'll tell you this. I'm excited about the fall and college football and everything that comes with that in Indiana and, of course, high school as well. So I'll be following along.
Tell Coach Adams I said hello, and you and I will see each other next weekend. Be good, buddy.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Always appreciate my conversation with Adam Alexander, and I am so happy for him. Well, he's done a lot on the NASCAR circuit. He has not had the chance to call this race. Like, his time of calling races, I was like kind of just – this was for a long time – was kind of like NBC's first race. NBC/USA starts the race after the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this time around. So I'm so happy for Adam Alexander. We'll wrap it up next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Hans, Bobby, I'm your white knight.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I do believe this is Dierks Bentley. Dirk's playing Saturday night at Ruoff. Caller number 4 right now gets a pair of tickets to see him in action. 317-239-1070. Yes, it's Bare Naked Ladies and Dierks Bentley. 2 separate shows. Just saying this is what we have given tickets away to on the program today. And seemingly the natural tie-in to Bare Naked Ladies would be that the winning horse of the race of the day is a horse called I'm Skinny Dippin'. Paid $3.40 on a $2 bet. Can you tell that I'm Skinny Dippin'? I mean, that's a favorite activity of all of ours. But clearly it was the favorite activity in terms of said race at Harrah's Hoosier Park. The $2 exacta paid $37. And if you put down 50 cents on the trifecta, it netted you $53.50. Johnny back tomorrow to do this all properly, not just the show in and of itself, but the race of the day. So thank you, James, for all the hard work. Again, you want to go back and listen to any of the interviews, whether it's Adam Alexander, who we played twice, whether it's Jack Marachnik, whether it's Gable Pentecost, 2 young men that were drafted in the 6th and 11th rounds, respectively, yesterday. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I noted of names I saw fly by on yesterday's MLB draft, there was a reminder of just how good the Indiana State baseball team was in 2023 and 2024. I think 3 former pitchers from Indiana State, Pruitt, Gilly, and Spencer, that I want to say were Texas, IU, Mississippi State this past year. They were all drafted yesterday. Gives you an idea of the job that Mitch Hannes did in putting that program on the map the way he is, already on the map, but elevating even further in 2023 and 2024. John is back tomorrow. He is at Beringer's Tavern tomorrow, which is downtown on Meridian Street. So hopefully have a chance to go hang with him. You get him twice this week before he gets to the JMV takeover. We have our final results when I simply said, hey, what you watching tonight? Is it the All-Star game? Is it the Fever game? Is it something else? The runaway winner is the Fever game with 53% of the vote. All-Star game next at 24%. Neither of the two at 23%. Thanks to all of you that participated and played along. Again, we talked about the Fever on a regular basis, and I think my buddy Greg had the proper perspective on it. I called the morning show the other day to talk about the Fever. 5 years ago, I couldn't tell you when they played their games. I think the fact that we're talking about the Fever on a daily basis shows the popularity locally and on a national level. I would agree with that. Kevin says, hey, 2 Ball State guys were drafted as well. Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you for making sure I covered that. Like I said, there were so many guys with local ties that got drafted yesterday. It was impossible to catch all of them. So I did the best that I could, and again, reached out to guys, again, from places that are a little bit different. Taylor's got a really good small college program. You don't expect, them to have a guy drafted on a regular basis. Butler had not had a guy drafted in terms of the last 6 years. It was 2019. Ball State, frankly, has had guys maybe on a semi-more regular basis, like Dre Jameson immediately comes to mind. I hear the music playing, and it's time for me to exit stage left. John is back tomorrow. James, been a pleasure to hang with you each of these last couple of days. I now get to kind of sneak away for a few days. So normally you'll hear me pop in on a show like on a semi-regular basis. Not this week. Time to unplug a little bit. I'll see you at Colts training camp. I'll see you at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'll see you at the Indy 11 game next weekend. Until then, have a good one. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.